Good morning to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We welcome you to our Sunday morning press conference. I'm very happy to have with me the MP for Chaguanas East, Vandana Mohit, the dynamic Vandana Mohit. I am Senator David Naked, and we're going to address some of the issues that is beleaguering our country at this moment. I will get straight into it. Trinidad and Tobago, this has not only been a grim few days, this has been a grim 9 years of PNM governance of Trinidad and Tobago. Who could not be moved by these headlines in the Express? And I want you all to look at this, because here in Trinidad and Tobago, we look at these headlines, we look at the reality of our situation, and we gloss over it. So here we have shattered dreams. And I'll give you all a story to that. You all know the story, of course, of Ezekiel Pariah, 12 years old, killed, murdered, riding his bike, described by his mother, friends, as outdoorsy, loving football, aspiration to go to Fatima College, out of Eastern boys. This might seem normal for a lot of our citizenry, but for boys now coming from Mova, Lavantil, Beetham, this is an extraordinary aspiration, and I want you all to understand the depth of that and what has been shattered here. It's not merely the dreams of a boy, but the dreams of a family, the dreams of a community. And it's a community that I came from. This is Lavantil. This is where my mother, my uncles come from. So when I saw this shattered dreams, my response was not only to be sad and angry, but it's always to let our people understand where we are. Because we bring the truth. The UNC brings the truth to the people. As we heard, the truth shall prevail. That's exactly what it will and it has to. Because clearly we've had enough. How many of these headlines are we going to see? How many of these headlines are we going to gloss over and bend to the narrative that this foul, vile, corrupt PNM continues to perpetrate? That is not their fault. Well, it is their fault, and I'll tell you why. We have a boy here, as I said before, completely innocent, gunned down. At least, people of Trinidad and Tobago, you would expect the leader of a country to be omnipresent, to be there, not only to be there where his money jumping up, or protect his interests, or private interests, running from Guyana and staying a week on a boat, smiling up at people, when our boys, our children are being murdered every day in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have to bring that truth to you. And we have to keep repeating it. Because we are countering an evil, pernicious, nefarious PNM government. That a prime minister for 9 years, and after 9 years, has not once addressed the murders of our children. Andrea Barrett, Ashanti Riley, Semyon Daniel, and Antonio Francois, who were murdered in that same Lavantil area. Murdered after exposing abuse, some say by PNM operatives. Not one comment by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Keith Rowley never commented. And my story to you, Trinidad and Tobago, is a personal one. About 3 or 4 days before this boy was so tragically murdered, I was honored by the community I grew up in, Mongdo, which some used to call a hotspot. And I am against that word. We in the UNC are against that word called hotspot. We are not stigmatizing anybody. These are areas that have been put in crisis by the PNM after 9 years, by the PNM after 51 years. Their constituencies that they have put in perpetual crisis. They are not hotspots. I go up to Lavantil to Picton every week to see my uncles. The Seaton family still operating. The Charles family, the Waldron family, Buckmeyer family, still operating. They are not hotspots. These are areas that have been put into perpetual crisis by the PNM government, and Rowley in particular. Hines, I am not going to get caught up in the Hines game. Hines is there, his failure is there, writ large for the population of Trinidad and Tobago because of Keith Christopher Rowley. Don't tell me Rowley does not know the sentiment and feelings of the entire population. MP Van Dana, he knows. He knows that the population is highly dissatisfied with Fitzgerald Hines. But he knows that if he keeps Fitzgerald Hines, we'll keep blaming Fitzgerald Hines for a problem that Rowley has created and continues to perpetrate on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is Fitzgerald Hines, a complete failure being there. We heard no comment from them when that shooting in Rose Hill Community School, a school where my mom, my uncles attended. There was no comment. Keith Christopher Rowley, in his disdain, didn't even go and visit these young students. Now, it has come full circle. Because dreams, just like catastrophes and tragedies, tend to come full circle. So while this dream has shattered, it is because that circle of trust, that circle of community that allowed me to be honored, allowed those boys in Santos Football Club to honor me after 50-something years because they made me dream. They made me dream just like Ezekiel Paria had hopes of dreaming. He wanted to be a Fatima boy, go on to play football, go on to be a pilot. When his dreams are shattered, it's not his dreams alone, it's that of the family, that of the community, who were hoping maybe after 50 years they could honor him like I was honored by the Mongdor community. And this is real. This is something that keeps community alive. It keeps it alive. These are not just mere words. But what does Rowley do on that? Rowley spits on that. Gallivanting all over the place. All over the place, except being in the place where he's needed. And I think a political commentator said that. He said that Rowley is not only absentee, he has absconded. Like the rascal he is. But anytime your money jumping up somewhere, or some personal interest, somehow his lapdog could find his way in Venezuela, easy. And we thinking, well, he go in and get something to help with the oil spill, he can come back with that thing. We don't know what he went to Venezuela for. And Rowley in Ghana, when Irfan Ali and other dignitaries left to go and take care of their business, Rowley's still in Ghana. On a boat, smiling all over the place. Rowley going up to see all kind of sightseeing. Where what the sightseeing we're seeing is a 12-year-old boy on the pavement, dead. A couple of days before that, a father gets shot right in front of Gloucester Lodge Moravian Primary School. So children now, for breakfast, instead of proper breakfast from this government, who decimated the school feeding program, their breakfast is to watch a man dead in front of the school. Did Rowley make an announcement? Did he make a pronouncement? Not one thing. All they come is the same narrative, the same lies. When Kamala Prasad Bisasa was making sure the borders were shut down, closed, Rowley and them have the borders open up. So it's not only when we had laptops coming in for the children, Rowley and them have guns coming in to give the boys up in Lavantil. The boys and them who can afford a bottle of water, they have guns worth $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. How is that possible? Rowley is saying to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we do not care about you, especially when you have no business interest for us. This is what Rowley is saying to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. He's saying to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, my money, his personal money, not sleeping out, but the children of Trinidad and Tobago could be killed, brutalized, raped, tortured, murdered. And I want to say this and address this to the director of the Children's Authority, who had a nice article talking about he's concerned about how many children are being killed. He's concerned about the 585 cases of abuse reported for January alone, 2024. Well, I have to say to you, Mr. Sheldon Cyrus, you're Prime Minister, because you're a line minister. It goes all the way to him. The Children's Authority is part and parcel of the Prime Minister's office. So, you, Mr. Cyrus, must call upon Prime Minister Rowley and ask him, with these increasing cases of abuse for January 2024, 500 plus, why haven't you asked the Prime Minister? Why hasn't he done anything when a report from Judah Jones, which the UNC was primarily responsible for having action that made that possible, that commission, that inquiry by Judah Jones, laid a report on the Prime Minister's desk. And until what? Rowley has done nothing. Nothing. So I'm calling out all the hypocrites here we have in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm calling out the unions who can see 4%. And all this comes back to crime. When you don't fight for the workers, and I want to bring this in, and this is very important. Why? Because I can tell you why. And Selwyn Kajo alluded to it briefly in one of his articles today. It's called racial insanity. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, Trinidad and Tobago. You can bet your bottom dollar. Had Kamla Prasad Bisa or Bazio Pandit been Prime Minister, you think those murders of those black children all up and down Lavan till Belmont, Tinapuna, you think the unions would not have been in uproar? They would have been pulling Kamla Prasad Bisa all over the streets. The unions. Not a one. All of a sudden they find Jesus. Peace. Kumbaya. The same. Emancipation Support Committee. Studying they pull down statues while black people getting back, young boys and girls getting killed up in Lavantil all over the place. Had it been an Indian Prime Minister, it would have been a completely different situation. You would have called them to account. Why is no one calling Keith Christopher Rowley to account for the murder and the killings of young black boys and girls up and down the East-West corridor? We have to ask these questions. We have to call out these hypocrites. And I'm doing so now. Keith Christopher Rowley, when he decides to come back and grace us with his presence in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm addressing certain things to you. Kamla Prasad Bisasa, in her crime thoughts, outlined a whole crime plan. It was part heavy, iron-fisted, but in most part, it relies on programs. You know, people focus empty the clip. But she had a lot of programs that goes with that. You can't just come and talk about empty the clip and target. She addressed those things. I'll give you an example. The biggest factor, the most significant factor that contributes to crime is poverty. Poverty. Everyone, all studies, United Nations, WHO, all of them point to that fact. Under Kamla Prasad Bisasa, we had baby grants, single mothers grants, all of these things, milk grants. We had all of these things under. That is important. Let me tell you why. When you have food insecurity, which is what we have in these crisis areas that the PNM has basically allowed to flourish. And I'll sidetrack here, because I remember our honorable deputy political leader said, it's not a knee-jerk reaction anymore by Keith Rowley. Something happens, Keith Rowley comes out. Economic Recovery Committee. Big hoopla. Tell me one actionable policy that has come out of that. Tell me one job created, except for the board members of that recovery committee. Tell me one job created for anybody in those crisis communities. But 3 black men get killed, Rowley come out. Big thing. This must happen. We must have recovery committee. We must have this and that. Nothing happened. Same old talk, same puppy show that he talks about. That is Keith Christopher Rowley. The other day something happened. Rowley come out. 100 million. What have you heard about that 100 million subsequently? Absolutely nothing. And we will hear nothing. Because Rowley knows that we'll have this. For one day, We'll have this for one day, shatter dreams, and then that is it. And I want this to penetrate the psyche of our people. Because while I was allowed to dream for my community and make it come full circle where I could help my community, this boy has no more dreams. Because of PNM and Rowley, another dream deferred. Another dream destroyed, shattered. And I want this to penetrate, because this must be our pivot. This must be our pivot right here. The pivotal moment must be this. What a beautiful young boy we lost. Tragic. And it's even more tragic to me when that racial insanity that Selvin Kajot spoke about, he spoke about in one context. But I think we can expand that. We have to realize when that so-called Indian woman, Kamala Prasad Bisasa, were telling the residents of East Port of Spain, you need to own your own homes. She and Jolene John came up with that plan. You pay $100 or $200, you own your home, because she understood, and still understands how important for the people of Eastern Port of Spain, Dry River, where my Auntie Twiggy is, where all these people are. They own nothing. They own nothing. What Rowley came out and said, and I'll keep telling you, Rowley say they're trying to fool black people. So Rowley has them as perpetual renters. That is PNM. Rent, keep renting for the rest of your life. Nothing sure, no guarantee in your life. You can't build wealth for your family. That is Rowley. When they came out, Kamala Prasad Bisasa and the UNC and said, take laptops. What Rowley said? They feel black children don't see. Racial insanity. Racial insanity. So I am calling on all these committees I mentioned. Emancipation Support Committee. And their figureheads who tend to have events once a year so everybody can play African for a day. I'm calling on you all to start calling Rowley to account. Asking him why he is not going up in those crisis areas that the PNM created, and demanding action from your Emancipation Support Committee. Kafra Kambon, your son, your daughter, I don't care who it is. I am angry that I have to call my uncles and know that the Hill is angry, but feel they can't do anything about it. Because I know if this happened to any of those upper middle class communities, we'll see action. We'll see action. But if it happened in Lavantil, Mongdo, Tinapuna, it doesn't matter. As my uncle say, David, people beaten up in jail and Tobago. But for us, there's normal. There's normal. And he himself knows how tragic it is that under a so-called African government, black people are dying every day. Every minute. There are some solutions that only UNC has. We call for immediate deployment of more protection services in and around those schools, in those so-called crisis areas. It has to be. Children cannot continue to be traumatized. Whether you deploy some of the army, whether you deploy more police, we were promised over 1,000 new police officers. We haven't seen that yet. Only empty promises from this PNM government. So we are calling for immediate deployment around those areas to keep those areas safe for our children. Our children cannot be kept being gunned down every day. It's impossible. And we have to starve the gangs of their human resources. We saw what happened in that European country. They closed down their prisons. I think it was Denmark. They're closing down their prisons because they're starving their gangs of human resources. How do you do that? You have to target, you have to surgically go into the communities and put programs that people can have an alternative to picking up a gun, that they can find a job. The PNM has done neither. All they have done is made the ground fertile for these gangs to keep on having human resources. And three, we are calling on the government who profess to knowing who these gangs are and to knowing who these people are in the gangs, to do your work. We have to get the rogue elements out of the police service, and we have to get a police service that can actually bring these people to justice, and we get some conviction rates. But we're not having any of that from a PNM government that is intellectually bankrupt, deficient. So we want those things immediately because of the very urgent necessity of now. What is happening in Trinidad and Tobago is unacceptable to every citizen. I do not care where they come from. They cannot accept seeing a young boy, 12 years old, with his dreams shattered, with his life shattered, with his family shattered, with his community shattered. Trinidad and Tobago, we know we are better. We know that there is a solution. That solution is the UNC. We have been fighting for the lives of people throughout our existence, and we will continue to do so. And I thank you very much, Trinidad and Tobago, for your attention. I now introduce to you our dynamic MP from Shogona Seas, Vandana Mohit, who will give you a substantive account of what is happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning to our viewers once again. And you have just heard it from my colleague, Senator David Nakid. And based on what he have just said, there's one big question to the viewing public. And that question is, can this country survive the seeping cancer, which is the PNM, which is the ruling government? Because when you look at the reality, and when we observe the truth is this cancer has taken over this country. This cancer has taken over this country in every facet of endeavors with negativity. My friends joining us, it seems that the criminal situation in Trinidad and Tobago is a ghost operation, whereby no one can be found to these wanton, senseless, and mindless shooting of children in recent times. And I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the UNC to offer, of course, our sincere condolences to the bereaved families of all of those innocent children murdered. And at this juncture, I want to take the opportunity to highlight the gruesome murders, and you've heard it from my colleague, of 11-year-old Ezekiel Paria, killed by a stray bullet. Murders of mother and daughter killed in their home. And whilst this mayhem continues, what is being done to at least protect the children who it seems to have become collateral damage? And I want you to remember this. Do you remember the late Patrick Manning when he spoke on behalf of the PNM? Do you remember the PNM's take on collateral damage? And I want to remind you, how can leopards change their spots? The PNM has always had an excuse for crime, where they shrug off murders. And we want to ask the PNM, is this the same position they hold today as they did under Patrick Manning, where it seems that our children have become collateral damage in this country when it comes to the criminal situation? Just yesterday, because I want to tell you, the PNM is not concerned about crime, you know. They are concerned about winning elections. Just yesterday, this shameless PNM government started electioneering with a youth caravan at African Grounds in Enterprise. And you know what is quite ironic, citizens? Is that that very same African ground, 9-year-old Jamal Morris was needlessly murdered while simply enjoying a football game. You recall this?
Yeah.
I recall standing on platforms, these very same press conferences on Sundays, mentioning how many more Jamal Murrays we must have. So Jamal Murrays, a few days ago, Ezekiel Paria, days before that, children. What will happen tomorrow? What will happen tomorrow with our children, and what will the PNM do? And I want you to remember, subsequent to Jamal's murder, the residents petitioned, and I joined them, the government. They would have petitioned the government to establish a police post at that very same African grounds where they were at yesterday. And earlier, I too penned a letter to the Minister of National Security to date, which he has never responded to, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, pleading for part of the community center which exists at that ground, African ground, to be converted to a police post. Yet to date, nada, nothing, zilch, nothing for the people of Enterprise. But yesterday you went there. After years of not giving anything to Enterprise, you have started your campaign yesterday. Jamal Murrays died. The citizens, the residents asked for a police post, nothing. Today we have Ezekiel Paria. What will happen tomorrow? What is the future of our children under this government? And friends, yet, this regime chooses to conduct activities within communities hoping to win elections. And we must remember, election is close. And I want to say to the government to stop using the youth to catapult yourself back into office. Because, and you must ask yourselves, can you trust this government? Yesterday, they are using youth caravans to come into Enterprise. Persons falling like flies, not just in Enterprise, throughout this country. And you are not doing anything about it. Yesterday, whilst they are on African ground, you know what happened? In another part of Enterprise? At the Das Trace Homework Center, Mr. Ralston was shot. He didn't die, luckily. He's hospitalized currently. But you know what I am told when I contacted my friends in that area? I am told, thank God, netball practice was cancelled for yesterday. Else children would have been at that location. And I want us to look at the Express editorial today. I'm telling you about a homework center here at this point where the president of a youth empowerment center was shot yesterday. And today, the Express editorial, this then, it was Trinidad, is what Trinidad has become. A place where children cannot go to school or play without incurring the risk of being killed. What if children were practicing for netball at that location, at the Das Trace Homework Center, located at Das Trace Recreational Ground yesterday? Our children are at risk, and this government needs to protect our children. Today I want to ask the government, what measures are they putting in place for the children who have lost parents arising from crimes? The government must protect our children and stop the lip service. Every time something happens, you run on a platform to say $100 million for crime. Community centers need rules, etc. But what happens after a few months? Recurring problems. Many children today, and I'm sure the citizens will agree with me, many children today are suffering from the lack of basics and abuse without any hope or relief. And I want to tell you, conversations with social workers who have to interact with these affected children reveal that at most times they are without resources, they are without laws, and they are without systems to have any meaningful or significant impact. And therefore, I want to use this forum, just as my colleague, alongside my colleague, because we are fighting for the same cause, to call upon the government to get serious about providing measures of savior. Because citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, we are at a position now where we have to provide measures of savior. It is bad, it is horrible, it is terrible. And our children, they are just sitting there with the hope for something to be done. And they are asking themselves, is this what I am growing up into? What will happen when I'm an adult? So we call upon the government to get serious about providing measures of savior. Get serious about providing youth with activities that encourage positive youth development. Because this will allow for activities such as at-risk youths ranging from sports, recreational, cultural, and educational opportunities. Because friends, you have sporting groups, Senator, and those joining us in at-risk communities who are doing barbecues to raise funding, to go to tournaments where they are getting opportunities outside of Trinidad to build a career, to come out of criminal situations, criminal environments, and they have to be suffering, begging this government for assistance. And when they don't get the assistance, they have to engage in barbecue fundraisers, begging for a table to rest the boxes on to sell, begging for a tent, begging for chairs for these fundraising activities, some bread, some chicken. And this is the reality. We call on the government to get serious about providing measures of savior when it comes to training and opportunities for youth development. Allow these youths to have improved skills and competencies. We sit in JSCs, and when you ask about the success levels, you know what's happening? Youths are getting opportunities, yes, to get a certificate. Not all youths, because you have cut in funding. They cannot help everyone, they can only help some. When you get the certificate, you go home. What happens after that? These young people are not being absorbed into any system where they can experience growth and actually use the skill or the skill set which they acquire from these certificates or programs. So get serious. We are in a position to provide measures of savior for our young people. The government must get serious about providing measures of savior when it comes to community centers, providing support for community centers to facilitate educational, vocational, rehabilitation, and mental health modules. Ladies and gentlemen, since May 2023, the Prime Minister ordered the Minister of Sports and Community Development to create rules and have rules made for community centers. Where are these rules for these community centers? We are in a position where you have one man and one woman controlling community centers.
Correct.
In at-risk communities where these young people do not have the opportunity to even enter these community centers. The Prime Minister spoke. Where's the Minister of Sport and Community Development? What is happening with these community centers? Where are the rules so that these programs can take place in these community centers and we can help our youth right within their own communities? The government must again get serious about providing measures of savior in terms of coordinating state programs where we are able to enable improved environment and overall positive development for at-risk youths. I want to ask, what has happened to this all-of-government approach? It has collapsed. I wonder if it was ever in existence. Because we can clearly see that there's a lack of coordination with the Office of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Social Development, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Local Government, and the Ministry of National Security. My colleague said it right. What else would the Prime Minister sit and hear about the Minister of National Security? The people put you there. The people do not want the Minister of National Security that you have given to them. What are you going to do next? When will you remove him? When will you provide hope for the citizens that someone will come and actually work for the citizens as it relates to safety and security? The central government, and I'm relating here to the all of government approach, they should be working with the local government authorities who are closer with the communities. And they are, of course, in a better able position to dispense social services programs. The country cannot wait for local government reform for this to happen. We have heard it. Local government reform will fix the problems. Laws coming to Parliament will fix the problems, and nothing is being fixed. We have the social delivery system. And I want to touch on this a little bit. The social services delivery system is too cumbersome, and it is destroying the psychological holiness of these poor and vulnerable applicants. Today, I publicly call on the Minister of Social Development and Family Services to really simplify and humanize the social services system. It is really damaging to the psyche of the nation's poor. Every minute you have to run back and forth with documents some of these people don't even know about. And it is really, really, really messing with the psyche of the vulnerable. And I'm sure, and I want to make it a little simpler in terms of what I'm explaining. We can all attest to this, because we all remember the utter horror, chaos, and bungling that was the temporary food card initiative for Christmas in December 2023. And to date, you know what? You have no one from the government with the decency to explain to the population, or far less apologize for what took place for Christmas. And that is just a little snippet of how difficult, how problematic the social services delivery system is in this country. And we call on the government to purport some form of care to our citizens. And I want to alert the population to the established fact, just like my colleague did, that the Child Affairs Unit, which is under the remit of the Office of the Prime Minister, and therefore given what obtains at present, the Prime Minister must immediately step in. No more Ezekiel Paria. No more Jamal Morris. The Prime Minister must immediately step in and act with decisiveness. And what should be the first incentive is the establishment of a Children of Crime Fund. And I repeat, what should be the first incentive by the Prime Minister in the fight against crime is the establishment of a Children of Crime Fund. And this fund should be directed to those children who are vulnerable and may have fallen through the cracks. You would have heard from the opposition leader recently unveiling anti-crime plans, calling for a crime fund for those children who would have lost parents due to criminal activities. And it is common knowledge that the Prime Minister can direct the Finance Minister to avail funds to any project of his desire. Because you also, on a platform, he announced 100 million for crime. Therefore, why can't he at least stand and direct some funds towards children affected by crime, or even a separate sum to be advanced for children affected by crime? The Prime Minister can summon in action monies when he wants to, because we have seen him saying that the Minister of Finance will make these monies available for the fight against crime. Well, we call on the Prime Minister to immediately put in place the first incentive, establish the Children of Crime Fund. And finally, I call upon the nation to join us, because we are fighting this fight, to represent the interests of those children affected by crime by demanding, use your platforms. Don't let them tell you how to use your platforms. Demand that this government immediately establish a fund to assist those affected. And I want to tell you, rest assured, we have proper plans being unveiled. You are hearing it at our anti-crime talks. You are hearing it on our various platforms, which we utilize to meet with you, to speak to you. Rest assured that a UNC government would earnestly, on assumption of office, explore these initiatives. And of course, other initiatives to ensure your safety. This government is not concerned about you, and that's the truth. The truth is our children are dying. The truth is, where are our ministers in the fight against crime? The all of government approach has collapsed. The PNM is now concerned with fighting elections and hoping to grip those persons in at-risk communities rather than actually help them and bring them out of a life of crime or an environment of crime. So friends, we call on the government to act. We ask you to stand with us and continue this journey with us in the fight against crime. You have heard it from my colleague and I here today at our weekly media briefing. We want to thank you for joining us, and at this time we would open up for any questions or so that may have come from the public or our media friends present here with us.
Yes, I have a question here from the media for MP Mohit. You mentioned the child shot in African ground last year and the PNM bringing a caravan this year. Was there any increase in police presence or any other such action taken after that tragedy last year?
Thank you very much for that question, because since last year and even before that, I am pleading, begging for more resources for the police service, for more patrols. I don't know if you recall, recently the Minister of National Security would have given his own statistics that home invasions in Kunupia are on the rise. And following that, we have also called as well, Kunupia, very close to Enterprise, one community, I must say, calling for increased police presence, increased amounts of resources for Central Division. And we have not had any responses. The police are still struggling to provide police patrols. The residents and citizens are still struggling when they contact the police to get the police to their sites or locations of criminal activities because of lack of resources. So we still call on the government to provide the resources. We call on the Rip Van Winkle, Minister Hines, to wake up and provide the resources to Central Division so that citizens can breathe some sigh of relief and that deterrent can be provided in terms of police patrols.
I have a question for Senator Naked as
Sure.
well.
Thank you, MP.
Yeah, and you had mentioned about not hearing from the Prime Minister with regard to the murders of the children. Can you elaborate on that, what you were expecting? And
Well, if you look at the history of this Rowley-led PNM government, we would see that over the years that he's been there, 9 years, he has basically never responded to personal tragedies. I mean, the proof positive is that he has a report outlining the abuse at homes under the Children's Authority. He has that report on his desk, and he has not done anything. And it should be ironic to the population that this is the same Prime Minister that the SRC, Salary Reviews Commission, just recommended giving an increase in salary. And we heard nothing from him condemning that, while the opposition leader, Kamal Prasad Bisasa, clearly came out and said, no, this is not the time for that. You know, so we have an absentee Prime Minister, somebody who has basically threw up his hands when it comes to crime. That's what he has done. He's thrown his hand up in the air and say, I can't do anything. You know, I keep in Fitzgerald Hines. We have failures, and we're hoping just to have just enough racial insanity in the country to bring us back into office, as my colleague said. So I think the public is well aware. So I want to thank the people of Trinidad and Tobago for tuning in. I would like to invite you all to our college meeting at Presal, cottage meeting, sorry. Our cottage meeting at Presal High School, 7 p.m. start time. All are invited. That will be tomorrow, our Monday night cottage meeting at Presal High School. I thank all of you for tuning in. Be safe, go home to your families, and God bless everyone. Thank you.